What is going on, guys? Welcome to this episode of Aussie English. It is 10:22 p.m. and I thought I would come on today to sort of do like a Walking with Pete episode, although I am currently sipping on coffee and chilling out talking to you guys from my office. So I wanted to talk about this issue that's kind of come up recently. Yesterday I received an email from a person who had been billed twice by the automated system that I have set up for Aussie English. And to put it politely, they were angry. So, and fair enough. It was a surprising thing they weren't expecting. But they sent me all of these, very emotional emails, very angry emails with a lot of anger in those emails and, quite a lot of threats as well. And it really sort of shook me for the night, I guess. It kind of really made me feel a bit, am I a horrible person? I feel really bad for this person. I feel, have I done something really bad? I ended up refunding them, obviously, and, cancelling their account and talking to them. But they were really threatening me and saying, you've set this up to do this on purpose, it's illegal, you're stealing from people, you're a horrible person. And then I found out afterwards that they had actually submitted a complaint to the Financial Institute in Australia, some sort of group in Australia, the taxation department or something, and they were sending me emails telling me how they had submitted a formal complaint because I was a horrible con man online. Anyway, so I sort of got to the bottom with this person after a few emails saying, this isn't a trick, I'm not trying to con you, I'm sorry that that's happened and I have refunded you immediately because of this, accident. And it turned out the problem was my problem, was my fault. The website had glitched, something had gone wrong that I'm trying to get my team to fix, where the person couldn't cancel their account and they had been charged again, And we're on it, we're trying to fix it, but it was a mistake. It wasn't done intentionally. And I guess the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I have these sorts of conversations quite a lot with people because it's easy, I think, in human nature to always assume the worst, right? To always assume that people are out to get you, that people are always trying to, do you wrong when things don't go your way, when things bad happen. And there's a certain saying that is, don't attribute to malice what stupidity can explain. Okay? So, in other words, don't assume that someone is doing something evil or nasty or, trying to con you, trying to get one over on you, when a more simpler explanation could be that it's an accident or that it's stupidity, right? Stupidity on my behalf in this example. And so I have to remind myself this all the time when I have issues, say I go and get a coffee and the person who makes the coffee burns the coffee and it's a bit too bitter when I get it. It would be easy for me to think, this person is, an asshole. They wanted to ruin my day. They're horrible. They, have it in for me. But there's no real, when you think about it, there's no real reason to think that's the case, right? The person doesn't know me. The person may have had a bad day themselves and maybe it was an accident. Maybe they left the beans on the machine a little long or whatever. It's probably not that the world's out to get me. And so I was thinking about this. I went to bed last night after this sort of altercation via email, after resolving it, but I was still kind of shaken and I was still thinking about it. It was whirling around in my head. And I was thinking, how much we could improve the world if we just gave people the benefit of the doubt in these sorts of situations. Because I'm sure this person didn't know and, for all they know, maybe they've been conned before online and they thought that I was doing what's happened to them in the past or something and they assumed the worst. And, it's an easy thing to fall foul of and to think is happening. But they didn't understand that I'm a real person on the other end of these hatred-filled emails, right, of all this abuse, that I'm actually having to read this, I'm having to deal with it, and that it was a genuine mistake, right? And so I was thinking last night, I'm like, how often does this occur where people don't spend a second to think, to contemplate, to, try and work out these sorts of situations when something goes wrong, when something doesn't go your way, Is it done on purpose because the person's doing something malicious, something horrible, or was it an accident? Was it stupidity? Was it, absent-mindedness? Did the person not mean to do that thing that, has upset you? And I was thinking, imagine how many people get upset and assume the worst and then spew that kind of nastiness, that kind of anger out into the world, and it goes around, right? Like a ripple effect, like a butterfly effect, where this person emails me, they make me incredibly depressed or angry or annoyed. I then, feel like crap for the rest of the day, and my wife and my son, see that and react on that, and, maybe they start feeling bad as well, and they go out into the world and interact with other people and have bad experiences with them on the same day, and it spreads, right? It's like a ripple effect, a butterfly effect. And I was thinking, how often must this happen where someone misunderstands a situation, reacts poorly for no need, right? And that it leads to so much suffering. I guess it's a bit of an existential thought, but I was sitting there thinking about this and how I am going to try, in the future to always assume the best of people, to not assume the worst, right? To always try and give people the benefit of the doubt until I have a reason to think otherwise. And I guess that's just our, judicial system in the West, in places like, Australia, America, Britain, Europe, South America, pretty much everywhere in the world these days, I guess, has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And I think it's easy to forget. It's easy to not live by those standards in day-to-day interactions or life, but it's incredibly important to do so. So yeah, I wanted to come on here and just see what you guys thought, give you that sort of, my 2 cents on this exchange, what happened, and just let you know that if those kinds of things happen with you in the future, whether it's with me, whether it's with Aussie English, or whether it's with other people, don't always necessarily assume the worst, right? Don't always assume the person's doing something malicious, they're out to get you, because quite often it's either a mistake or it is stupidity, okay? So with that, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope it's given you something to think about, and I'll chat to you soon. Peace.